Are you not entertained? Russell Crowe asks us in the original Gladiator. And if the best picture and best actor wins tell us anything, the answer foremost was yes. With that said, even the most ardent enjoyers of the 2000 original weren't clamoring for a follow-up, if only because the first film wrapped its story up in a neat bow, by which I mean the death of its lead character, played by Russell Crowe. Director Ridley Scott has been pretty hit or miss in recent years. If you're lucky, you'll get The Martian, and if you're unlucky, you'll have to endure Jared Leto's pathetic excuse of an Italian accent, which was so bad that when it was Joaquin Phoenix's turn to play Napoleon for Ridley Scott, he was just like, nah, I'm not even gonna try. I'm just gonna play Napoleon like an American. On which side of the Ridley Scott coin would Gladiator II fall? It was hard to tell, but the inclusion of exciting up-and-comers such as Paul Mescal, Joseph Quinn, and industry veterans like Denzel Washington made me a little curious. If such talented names signed onto it, there's a good chance there's something of merit here, and not another legacy sequel which only tarnishes the legacy of the original. Now, having seen Gladiator 2, I can honestly say it's alright. It's pretty alright. As far as legacy sequels go, I think it's probably one of the better ones. Which isn't saying much, but I'd rather rewatch this movie 10 times in a row than watch Terminator Genesis, Glass, Jurassic World, Matrix Resurrections, the latest Jason Bourne, or Dr. Sleep. Though to be fair, I'd rather gouge my eyes out than watch most of those movies again. Hell, I even prefer it to The Incredibles 2. If I had to credit that to anything, it's the technical aspects of the movie. From a filmmaking craft perspective, this movie is something to marvel at. The production design is about as good of a recreation of ancient Rome as you'll find. The costumes are period accurate and the cinematography is gorgeous. This is a backhanded compliment, but if I were to mute the movie and watch it as if it were a silent film, there's a good chance I would enjoy it more than I did in its audio-visual form. So if you're hearing me, Ridley Scott, get to work on a black and white version of this. Gladiator 2 is not afraid to go balls to the walls when it comes to the set pieces. You've heard about the sharks in the Colosseum, and before you complain about the idea being too absurd and historically inaccurate, I'm gonna direct you to the words of Ridley Scott in response to historians who criticize his Napoleon film. Get a life. It's incredible to hear that despite being in his mid-80s, Ridley Scott filmed this movie in even less filming days than Todd Phillips' Joker 2. And even more impressive to see the action sequences filmed with the ambition, creativity, and lack of restraint you would find in a man that just picked up a camera for the first time, who's just now discovering all the possibilities of what cinema can do. Unfortunately, anytime that sharks aren't flooding a Colosseum or Paul Mescal is swinging a sword at a baboon, it's quite a bore from a story and character POV. The story follows Lucius, played by Paul Mescal, who lives under the tyrannical rule of twins Geta and Caracalla, whose iron fist has diminished the dream of Rome. One small problem: this movie does nothing to get me to give a damn about the dream of Rome. This isn't really a spoiler as it occurs within the first 10 minutes of the movie, but the inciting incident for Lucius is the loss of his wife, a character in a romance that this movie didn't just fail to get me invested in, it barely even tried. We pretty much only spend 10 seconds with them together before she bites the dust, and that doesn't even feel like an exaggeration. I didn't really care if the lead character achieved his goals because the movie didn't get me to care. I think they screwed up their foundation the moment they hired the absolutely miscast Paul Mescal. I am a proud Paul Mescal fan. He was incredible in Normal People, even better in After Sun, and All of Us Strangers is a masterpiece. But let's call a spade a spade. He's completely out of place in Gladiator 2. It's not that I can't accept Paul Mescal in a more mainstream movie, but the day I do, it isn't gonna be one where he delivers rousing speeches and tries to rile up an army. He just doesn't have the gravitas to pull it off. And when he's emotional, I can't help but see the I can fix him type he normally plays. He doesn't have an awful lot of dialogue in the movie, yet he doesn't manage to draw us in those silent moments. It's what separates an actor like him from fellow Irish actor Cillian Murphy, who manages to draw draw you in with just his eyes in Oppenheimer. Mescal isn't the only one who delivers a performance ill-fitting of his talents. Joseph Quinn and Fred Heshinger are both comically goofy as the antagonists of this movie. In a post-The Dark Knight world, it seems like every supervillain is trying to ham it up to 11 and win in a game of who can be the weirdest little freak, but these dudes hammer up to 30, and I couldn't take them seriously for a moment. Not that the makeup and costume design really helped. And I have no problem with a pathetic little villain. I even enjoyed Kylo Ren in the Star Wars sequel trilogy, but these characters somehow end up being less intimidating than Kylo Ren. It's not that they're just not scary, they have an anti-fear factor, where their presence somehow puts you more at ease in how comedic it is. Pedro Pascal is pretty bland and badly serviced in this role, leaving us with only two solid performances, Connie Nelson and Denzel Washington, the latter of who chews up the scenery, having the time of his life. The cast is full of generally talented actors, so I blame it less on their skill and more on the uninspiring script. Alright, maybe Joseph Quinn and Fred Heshinger are a little to blame, but it's a script which fails to stir up any genuine emotion in the midst of exposition and boring backroom politics. The script has a lot of ties to the original film, which I don't personally mind, but if you're someone who struggled with The Force Awakens because of how it appropriated A New Hope as a blueprint, you might roll your eyes during the more nostalgic moments of Gladiator II. With that said, I've seen a lot of bad films this year, and it isn't one of them, but it's one that doesn't play to its strengths. Technically, it's impressive, but all things considered, the action only takes up 25% of the film, which leaves us with a boring 75%, which we just don't know what to do with. Barring a ridiculous, laughter-worthy, literal piece of plot armor in the final battle, I enjoyed the action, but not enough for me to give this movie a resounding recommendation. Only a 6 out of 10 rating. Thanks for watching. If you've had the chance to watch Gladiator 2, let us know what you thought about it in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for weekly TV and movie reviews. I'm Cinemike, and I'll see you next time.